Hi, I'm Lisa Bradshaw. Thanks for joining the show today. I'm here with my guest, Steve Maher. He is the co-director of Run Wenatchee. We'll have another guest on later in the show, but thanks for being here.
Yeah, you're welcome, Lisa.
So thanks for being here to talk about running. So if I could get inspired by you today, that would be really terrific. I have a trainer friend who's been working with me on the walk-run thing, and that's a good place to start.
It definitely is, yeah.
So talk about Run Wenatchee when you're placing it and its beginning.
You know, it's basically a running community. It's a club in a way, but not, it's not formal where you pay membership dues or anything like that. It doesn't cost anything. And so we do we've got several kind of main things we do. We put on races, official races, including road races and trail runs. We also do a weekly, what we call our run club. We stage that out of Pybus Market on the Loop Trail. We do that every Thursday during the year except for holidays. So even in the wintertime, when there's a foot of snow on the ground, we're out there. And we get, even in the winter, we get probably anywhere from 100 to 150 people every Thursday.
Every Thursday.
Yeah, and during the warm weather months, it's anywhere from 200 to 350 people. So it's a big deal. It's become a big social thing because people bring their friends and their family. And because we stage it out of Pybus, some people then afterwards, get something to eat or something to drink, and there's that sort of camaraderie going on. And then a couple other things we do track workouts during the warm weather months on Tuesday nights. Again, those are free. We have a couple coaches that show up and help people.
So you meet at a track?
Yeah, at Wenatchee High School track.
Okay.
Yeah, after work for about an hour. And then we've increasingly got into doing kind of social things where we do a film festival every year, trail running film festival, usually in the spring, just before the trails open up here. And we've been bringing in, over the last 2 or 3 years, well-known runners from around the country to come in and speak, and in some cases put on a training clinic perhaps the next day. So it's basically all things running in Chelan and Douglas counties is what we're all about. And
so when you talk about running, people also walk some of it.
Yes, definitely. Yep.
And so when people are thinking about Run Wenatchee, what would you encourage them to do if they're just starting out and thinking, wow, that's pretty overwhelming. I'm going to be in front of 200 people and I don't even run.
I would suggest them come to Run Club because the way that's structured, you can check in anytime between 4 and 6 p.m. and it doesn't cost anything. And because it's you check in anytime, it's not a mass start, so it's not a race. Probably 30% of the people who do it now walk the entire distance, which is a 5K. Some people walk and run it. Some people have walked it for the first year and then started to run it. You don't need to show up every Thursday. You just show up when you can. But consistently, we're there between 4 and 6. And because of that no pressure, you bring your family. You can bring your kids on a stroller. You can bring your parents. It doesn't matter. It allows, I think, people to get out there on the trail and not feel like they're under the microscope, that they've got to compete or something, because it's not about that.
So let's talk about being a runner in general. So when I've interviewed people before who talk about running, and one gentleman has always stuck out in my mind. He had done, I think, about 50 marathons in his time, and he was an older gentleman, and he still did them, but he always runs, I believe it was 5 minutes and 15 seconds, and then he walks for 45 seconds.
Yeah.
And you can mix that up however you want in the walk-run, but he said that he would finish the marathon at the same time, oftentimes, as a person who ran the whole time.
Yeah, that's a great thing. So when I don't do marathons anymore, but I did about a dozen marathons, and there were times where you'll encounter people like that. So I'm running the whole time, and I'll see somebody walking, right?
And you're thinking, oh, you're never going to finish.
Yeah, and I pass them, and then a mile later, they've caught up with me and actually passed me, and then they do it again. And it's funny because, you're sitting there thinking, I'm running the whole time, and they're walking. How are they doing this? And so it doesn't, as long as you accomplish your goal, whether it's a 5K, a half marathon, or a marathon, it really doesn't matter how you get there. Another interesting thing is with trail runs, a lot of people think, how can somebody do that? Or you need to be in super fit shape to be able to do those. But in trail runs, invariably, most people walk a section of the trail run. When you get to a hill, particularly a steep hill, you're not running up it, you're probably walking it. And so, it's a combination thing. And I think the most important thing is just getting out there and doing something.
I think sometimes it's landmarks too. So if you're out on a trail and you look out and you say, okay, I'm going to run to that tree, just like if you're on the street, I'm going to run to that street light or run to that stop sign and then take a break.
Yeah.
You know, whatever it is to kind of get you motivated
Yep,
to get to that
yep,
next spot.
Yep. I do that a lot on longer runs. You know, I'll see something ahead of me and I'll think, okay, I'm going to get to there. And then once I get to there, I'll think about the next thing I want to do, you know, because your mind does play games with you, I guess is, you know, how I look at it. It'll tell you, you know, you may have, you may not feel the greatest and your mind is telling you, well, you should stop, but you got to kind of push through that. And if you push through it, you'll find typically that that thought goes away. Do
you take to a treadmill very often?
You know, in the wintertime I do a little bit, depending on the weather we're having here during the winter. There have been times when I've, you know, pretty much run through the entire winter, you know, if we don't have a lot of snow. The other great thing is the PUD here does a great job in plowing the loop trail on this side of the river. It's amazing. I mean, there'll be snow, we'll get a foot of snow, and within hours that snow is gone. And so the loop trail is a great spot to go running virtually any time during the winter, even when we got snow. It's also lit at night. So if you can't get off work early enough and it's dark, you can still go down there and run.
And there are people out there too.
Yeah.
I always, especially right near Pybus in that area, I wonder what we did before Pybus, don't you? I mean, like, like everyone meets there, it seems, and that's a great thing. But that area along there, there's always people.
Yeah.
You feel
Totally.
safe.
I mean, I've been out there at 4 in the morning. Sometimes I'll go out and get up early and run. And at 4 in the morning, there are people walking their dogs at 4 in the morning. I can tell you that.
That would not be me. I don't have a dog, but I definitely wouldn't be doing it at 4 in the morning. But that's dedication. You know, I think too, you know, we talk about you starting your day off with a mindset, and if you can start your day with that exercise, and I think that I find that runners really have this mentality that is this, it's athleticism, but it's something else. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
You're around a lot of runners.
Yep.
What is it?
You know, I think it's the simplicity of it. You know, it's
all you need is a good pair of shoes.
All you need is a pair of shoes, and it's, you know, basically when it comes down to it, is putting one foot ahead of the other and just repeating that. And there's something very elemental about that I think is attractive to a lot of people. You know, you don't need equipment. You don't need necessarily to run fast. I mean, you can even walk it again. You know,
Yeah.
so it's that ability. It's sort of an innate thing, I think, in humans to just do what we do when we run.
Well, I appreciate you being on. We're going to join Kristy Allen. She's a volunteer coordinator at Run Wenatchee.
Yep.
Is going to join us in just a moment.
Elements is a nationwide top 200 salon celebrating 20 years of service in the Wenatchee Valley. We are staffed with educated and experienced designers providing beauty and health services. Visit our Facebook page for our store hours and our menu of services.
So Pam, how's your mom doing?
She's okay. She's struggling. She'd like to stay in her house, and it's getting harder for her to do the daily chores.
What kinds of problems is she having?
Just basic house cleaning, you know, taking care of her house, yard work, taking care of her medicine.
Mm-hmm. It does sound exhausting.
It is very exhausting, and I always worry about her.
Aging and Adult Care can assist you or your loved one to remain comfortably and safely in their own home. Contact them today to start the conversation.
Hi, thanks again for watching the show. I'm Lisa Bradshaw. Now joining Steve, Maher, and myself is runner and volunteer coordinator for Run Wenatchee, Kristy Allen. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So before we get into Run Wenatchee as a whole, let's talk about your journey as a runner. Have you always been a runner?
No, not at all.
That makes me feel hopeful.
No, not at all. Yeah, actually, my whole running journey started with Run Wenatchee, thankfully. Thursday night run clubs became a social aspect for me, which got me into my running career.
So have you been, were you in fitness, did you do some kind of workout before running?
I did. I lifted weights and did a
Okay.
little bit of yoga.
Okay.
But the run club, the Thursday night run club certainly accelerated that.
So had you not been a runner at all before?
Nope, not at all.
So then you decide to go to the run club, and tell us about the run club.
So the Run Club is just a free event that happens every Thursday from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock p.m. And you go and check in and you run a 5K or a 10K and then you're done.
So you can
Or
run it
walk
with other
it.
people.
Oh yeah, you
or
can
run
actually
or
walk
walk.
it.
Walk
Yeah,
it, yeah.
absolutely.
Or both.
Yeah.
Run, walk.
Yeah, run, walk, absolutely. And you can bring your kids and your dogs and.
So
it's a
you,
fun
do you
event.
find that the run club is what really people, like they start there and then they start to become, do you have many runners come join the club that weren't runners before?
Yeah, I think there's some that way. You know, I think Kristy being one example of that. We've had people who, frankly, have shown up and just walked for the first year or so, and then have gradually gotten into running. So it's kind of a mix, but there's also definitely people who have been longtime runners show up because it's, as Kristy mentioned, it's a big social event.
Is it intimidating if you'd never run?
Not at all.
No?
Everybody's really friendly and welcoming, and that's what made me stick to it.
Did you start off running from the start, or did you walk run, or did you?
I walked and ran. Yeah.
You know, I think the other thing that makes it not intimidating is that we do have runners and walkers, and there's no mass start, so you just show up anytime between 4 and 6 p.m.
Oh, so there's not like a starting line
No,
where you're like,
nobody's
seeing people
timed.
go way out past you. And
And, you know, once you complete 10 of these, you get a free commemorative shirt. Once you do 25, 50, 100, 150, 200, we actually now have had, I think, 3 or 4 people who've hit the 250 mark since we started back in January of 2013.
wow.
Yeah.
That's well, it's accountability, it's dedication, it's like people expecting you to be there. You meet your friends, right?
Yep.
The social part of things.
Yes.
So I just want to hone in a little bit on your journey as a runner. So you started out walking, and did you run part of it? Did you walk for the first? Tell me a little bit about that.
I went with a couple friends who kind of pushed me to run, and so. Yeah, for the first few, though, it took me a little while to get up to my 5K, to be able to run the entire thing.
How long did it take you?
Probably a couple of months.
A couple months.
Yeah. to
So
get back
did you
in it.
feel sore in places you didn't know you had?
No, actually, I didn't.
But were you still doing yoga while you were
I
running?
was.
That helps.
Yeah, it does help.
I found in the different times when I've run in my life, and I use the term run kind of, it's run, walk, you know, that when I was doing yoga, I had no trouble with running. And the older we get, you know, the you have to, you know, accommodate your body in that way. But so you started off with doing the running or walking, then you worked into the running.
I did.
And did you feel like, did you work out, did you run other than at Run Club?
I did.
So you had to build up.
Yes, I did, yeah.
So what did that look like for you?
A couple times a week. Walk, run, walk, run.
And eventually you could run the whole thing.
Then I could do the whole thing, and then started doing 10Ks,
and
and
you-
then into half marathons.
wow.
Yes.
So what is that like the first time you run the first 5K the whole time? What was that like for you?
I was incredibly proud of myself for being able to run that, because generally I would only run if somebody was chasing me. So it was a good moment. It was a proud moment.
Yeah.
And so then my kids got into it also.
Okay,
And
so
I
it's
bring
something
them.
you go
yeah,
together.
yeah. It's just a fun, free family event that, you know, we all have a good time at it.
So you might want to tell everybody how many half marathons you're doing now.
So far this year I've done 6.
Wow. So
Yeah.
throughout the state or throughout the country, I guess you'd have to.
Yeah, we do destination half marathons, and so we plan a trip and knock out a half marathon, and we've been doing like one a month since March. So
So you have to keep running outside of that, or you wouldn't be
Yes.
able to. Do you run
Yes.
the whole thing?
uh-huh.
Wow.
I do, yeah.
That's exciting.
It is.
So now you run and you do yoga, and anything else that you do? What is your fitness routine like?
Trail run, I bike, I
So
lift weights.
So running is, you do it anywhere. You
Yes.
don't necessarily just do it along the trail that
Yeah,
everyone
and the
meets at.
canal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any of those places.
Yeah.
So were you always a runner?
You know, I ran definitely as a kid. I come from a running family. 2 of my nephews ran in college. My dad ran in college. I did not run in college. I ran in high school, and then I stopped until I was about 30, and then I picked it up again. And I don't do marathons anymore, but I did them for a number of years. I did about, I want to say maybe a dozen or more marathons. I've done probably 30 to 35 half marathons. I still do half marathons. Yeah, so I'm definitely a runner, and you know, there's like so many things I get out of it. One of them is certainly the health aspect, but also, and it's also health, a stress reliever. You know, it relieves my stress. It also allows me. I'm a very creative person. A lot of the stuff I do in my regular work life, I've got to come up with ideas, and so you clear your mind when you're running. You would not believe the number of ideas that kind of float to your head, and so it helps that way too.
And what does it do for you?
The stress relief, I can solve many problems out on a long run. That is for sure.
And then realize they're not that big a problem for your athlete.
You know, and then once you accomplish a goal like a half marathon, you really feel like you can take on anything. You can handle it. You break it down mentally, and you just keep going. Because when you're running a half marathon, you just can't quit. You just have to continue on, and that, I think it translates over into our everyday life.
So let's talk about the half marathon. You've run marathons, and you are sticking to half marathons.
I am at this moment.
And is there a reason that you, like, what holds you, or you're not interested in the whole marathon? It's a whole different level of training,
It's 26 miles.
It's a whole, I've heard it's a whole different level of.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, knocking out a half marathon a month is not a big deal anymore. And so I'm kicking around a full, but we'll see how that.
It's not a big deal anymore.
Yeah, it's
I love
not.
That. I
Yeah,
love that.
thankfully. I mean, I feel, you know, I'm kind of at that point where once you're doing one a month, your fitness level kind of maintains.
Right, because you're training through that. You go, how many times a week do you run aside from the club?
Twice.
So 3 times total?
Yes.
That's what, okay.
Yeah.
So, and that's enough to keep that?
Yes.
With all the other things you're doing?
Yes.
And how about you? What do you run outside of the club, or do you?
Yeah, definitely. I do a fair amount of trail running, and as Kristy mentioned, you know, I'm doing basically half marathons now, and so if you can get in a good 10-mile run or 11-mile run, some point, you know, shortly before your half marathon, you're basically ready for that.
Because you know it.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's whereas a marathon, you've got to do at least 1 or 2 20 to 23 mile runs before the marathon, and so there's just that much more training involved. You know, typically a marathon training, you're training for 4 to 5 months leading up to that marathon. Yeah, so it's a lot of work and time and
time commitment.
You know, and I enjoyed it, but you know.
And a physical commitment.
Yes.
Yeah, basically.
Your body's going to notice the difference of the 12.
I can tell you funny stories about my first few marathons, things I did that I didn't do right, that I, you know, for instance, the first marathon I ever did was in Victoria, BC, and I did it with one of my older brothers, and we finished, and our hotel was within a block of the finish in Victoria. And as soon as the marathon was over, we immediately retired to the hotel, each went to our individual rooms and fell asleep. And then woke up about 2 hours later, and I couldn't move, you know, because your muscles and everything.
You didn't hydrate.
Didn't hydrate, didn't walk it off, and nothing. You know, things like that, you know, that you just learn as you go, yeah.
Well, when we come back, let's talk a little bit more about Run Wenatchee and the programs and the events that you hold throughout the year. But I appreciate you sharing all of that, because I found that, my brother jokes that once your runner starts running and you have a conversation with them, they'll say things like, they'll have to tell you their whole path, like where they go to run, right? Do you find that that's true? Mm-hmm. And I would think that with getting to train here, you are probably prepared to run just about anywhere, right? Because you're not running, you're not running flat the whole time. You're kind of, I've heard that can be a challenge. You show up somewhere in another state to run, and you're not ready for the terrain.
Yes. Yep.
So that prepares you as well.
And the trails we have around here, are provide that. But so does the loop trail. Loop trail, a lot of people think is flat, but it's really not.
Oh yeah, it's not.
It's
not. Yeah, for sure. Well, let's take a break and we'll come back. We'll talk more with Steve Maher of Run Wenatchee, and we're talking with Kristy Allen, a volunteer coordinator at Run Wenatchee as well. We'll be back in just a moment.
Elements is a nationwide top 200 salon celebrating 20 years of service in the Wenatchee Valley. We are staffed with educated and experienced designers providing beauty and health services. Visit our Facebook page for our store hours and our menu of services.
Dear Mary Maids, please clean the kitchen, and the cabinets, and floors, and the chairs. And I wish you could clean the dog. Colin is now feeding himself. Thanks, Megan.
Hi, Megan. No worries. We got it all cleaned up. Let's hope Colin gets past the spaghetti flinging stage soon. Till then, we've got you covered. See you next time, Mary Maids.
Thanks again for watching the show. I'm here with Steve Maher and Kristy Allen from Run Wenatchee, and we're going to talk about what's coming up here in our community. I participated last year. It was a lot of fun. Turkey on the Run. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, it's a great family holiday event. It's held on Thanksgiving morning. We stage it and run it from Rotary Park in Wenatchee out on Western Avenue. There's a 5K, a 12K, and also a kids race that's really popular. Over the last few years, it's become Wenatchee's largest road race, surpassing the Wenatchee Marathon. We get about right around 1,000 runners, which is a lot of runners the last few years. So it's a big thing, and people bring their friends, their families. It's probably Run Wenatchee, well, I don't want to say for sure our most popular event, but it's a great one to put on because people are really in a good mood. You know,
And they're getting ready to eat that turkey.
so everybody's friendly and happy, and they're not worried about their time. And it is chip timed, you know, and so people will have official time, but that's not the purpose, you know. It's basically just get out there, have a good time in the morning, and then head back to home.
Yeah, I participated, like I said, last year, and I think we just decided the night before. I'd seen it around year after year, and I thought, let's go do that. And we had a great time. And it is a sense of, like, you start the day off feeling like, okay, I'm going to eat some food today, but at least I've done, you know, my share of the work today, this morning, for starting right off. So then Run Wenatchee has events throughout the whole year. So let's talk a bit about the events that you guys hold and put on, and how people can get involved.
Basically, we've got a series of what I would call community road races, including Turkey on the Run. The others are the Heartbreaker 5K that we do in, I think it's the third Saturday in February. We also do the 4th of July run. We do, this past year, we're going to do it again, we do a solstice run that starts and ends down at Pybus. And then Thanksgiving Day run. And then we also do a trail run series. Trail running is becoming very popular, not only here, but all around the country. And so we've got a 3-race trail run series. The first one is the last Saturday in April up at Horse Lake Reserve. It's called the Horse Lake Trail Runs. About a month later, first Saturday in June, we do the Red Devil Trail Runs south of Kashmir. And then we wrap up the trail series with our Oktoberfest trail runs in October up at Leavenworth Ski Hill.
I hiked the Horse Lake Trail last weekend, and I hadn't done that trail before, and I could see why it'd be a great trail running. So
gorgeous.
You do running on the street, you do running on the trails. So tell us the difference for you.
Being on the trails, for me personally, it's just a lot nicer. It's less stress on my body, and I feel like I'm more out in nature as opposed to being on the street with cars. And I just get in tune with being out in the outdoors.
Well, let's talk about that as well, because you started out running through the Run Wenatchee Club, you said earlier in the show. What does it do to your body, and how do you protect it?
It is a little bit harder when you're running on that cement, and so one of the things is I do try to run on the canal and then on the trails because it is a little bit less stress.
You find that as well?
Yeah, definitely. You can feel it in your knees and your ankles, and you know.
Wherever there's impact.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
But you can't go as fast on trails. You know, you have to go. I mean, you just do it because you're on a single track, and there's roots and rocks. And so
So it's not a time thing. You're not trying to improve your time necessarily, but maybe your fitness.
Whereas if you're on the road, you know, you've got the traction that a paved pavement provides you with your shoes, and so it's you know, you're more just focused on going straight ahead and not so much looking down on the ground to make sure rocks and roots. And although I found the more I trail run, the more I get sort of this peripheral vision where I'm really not looking down very much anymore. I can just kind of know where these rocks and roots are.
Yeah, you start to recognize what they are without even seeing them, even if it's not a trail you've done before. Yeah. So with the Turkey on the Run, that happens on...
it's on Thanksgiving morning, so it'll be November 22nd this year.
Yes.
And what time does everyone show up?
The race officially starts at 9. However, we do also a pre-registration, or not pre-registration, late registration that morning. So we're there at 7 a.m. setting things up, and actually a little earlier than that. And then it's also, we do, for that event, that's a big fundraiser for the Women's Resource Center. So they get a portion of all the proceeds we generate, plus we do a food drive for them. And that typically amounts to like $4,000 or $5,000. It's a big thing for them. So we encourage all our runners to bring non-perishable food, drop it off there, and then again a portion of their entry fee goes directly to the Women's Resource Center. So
people who are thinking about joining your club, this isn't a typical run, obviously, because there's more people than usual at Turkey on the Run, but it is a way to kind of get out there and see what this camaraderie and this kind of group event is like.
Yes.
And I'm guessing you do it each year, or you try?
I no longer do it, and now I volunteer for it.
Oh,
because,
well, then you're volunteering, so
Yes.
you can't actually do both.
Yes.
So then what else would you want to add to people? Turkey on the Run, 9 a.m., get started. And you have a little treat for people here?
Yeah, well, I figured since it is coming up that we would get in the spirit, I guess you could say. And so this is what I wear on that day, believe it or not.
Okay, so if you want to come see Steve Maher and his turkey hat at Turkey on the Run, it is on Thanksgiving morning at 9 a.m. You can get there for early registration. Bring canned foods that will benefit the Women's Resource Center in our community and get some work done before you take in those Thanksgiving calories. Thanks so much for being here, both of you. The eyes look real, don't they?
They do, don't they?
Are you wanting high-speed internet but don't have access to PUD fiber? Try Sky-Fi high-speed wireless internet from LocalTel. Call 888-8888 today.